Oh, okay. So apparently I'm all sorts of special today and forgot to hit the record button when I started pouring this beer. But quick synopsis of what's going on here. I have 2 bottles of Under the Kilt. Wee Heavy Scottish style ale from Dragonsmead Microbrewing. Now, the difference between these 2 bottles is that one of them came in a 4-pack of Under the Kilt, and the other one is a standalone bottle that was barrel aged. So I'm pouring, and I don't remember which one's which. I just know I separated the barrel aged one, and I had my friend Jason brought them over, and he had the single bottle, obviously separate. Now I'm going to see which one is the barrel aged versus which one's the normal one. Now, right off the bat here, they look very much the same. Very much the same. I know I don't have them in the exact same glasses, but these are a very dark ruby kind of color. Hey Phoenix, come here. Now the difference is this one right here, I'm willing to guess that this is probably, just off the head, that this one right here is the normal one, just because it retained a little bit more head and it's rocky and it's in the middle. Whereas this one's probably the barrel age because it's very, thin, non-existent in the middle and a very thin rim around the glass. Oh, you are just being all kinds of extra right now, aren't you? So I'm going to take a look at some of the carbonation here. The lacing's going to be a big tell, because the more carbonation I have off of this, the higher chances of it not being barrel aged. Oh, I can't really do it in this one that much. So I'm going to go off a smell here. Heavy toffee, a little bit of smoke, a little caramel sweetness. Now I should pick up some oak and stuff maybe from this one. Yeah, that one's, yeah, there it is. There it is. There is the oak, the vanilla, some coconut coming through on the nose. Yeah, so this one here is the barrel aged version. So I was right with that take on the head. Yeah, that's real nice, real nice level of sweetness, not too much. Kind of even a slight bit of toffee, nice amount of caramel, just very mellow and well palatable. And it's not overly sweet. There's just a slight touch of, dryness to it, but this is a heavy, the Scottish style ales, especially the wee heavies, they're supposed to be more sweeter anyways. Whereas, yeah, this one is definitely barrel aged. I get the oak, that vanilla, the coconut, and a little bit of extra added spice from the bourbon. So when you age beer in bourbon barrels, it's going to yank out some of those flavors of the bourbon in the barrel itself. So if you age the beer in an oak barrel, it's it's going to taste like oak. You're also going to get whatever flavors from that bourbon in there that you can't get in here, like what I just had, some of the bourbon spices and a little bit of the longer you age bourbon, the more spicier, the more leathery it kind of gets, and you're going to pull some of that into there, as well as because wooden barrels are not 100% airtight. They're not meant to be. They're going to breathe a bit. You're going to have less carbonation in that. Whereas this is, see, this wee heavy is perfectly fine on its own. One of the better ones I've had, especially from the States. I've had a few wee heavies where it just tastes overly syrupy, like they added some, you know, like chocolate or not chocolate, but like caramel syrup into that or something, and it just doesn't taste right. It doesn't taste natural. It's, you know, really filmy kind of, you know, like something you would get if you had, you know, like when you drink soda and it's got that high fructose corn syrup. It's got kind of like that filmy feel in your mouth. Yeah, this does not have that. Now this, with the bourbon in here, being aged in a bourbon barrel, adds a lot more, you know, body, character, depth to this. And it's very much a different experience. In barrel aged beers, specifically bourbon barrel, and I keep saying bourbon barrel, but you can age a beer in whatever barrel you want, but bourbon barrels are very common, so I'm just saying that. But this, as I said, this adds a lot more character, a lot more depth, and makes it more, instead of like a drinking beer with food, it makes it more of a sipping beer. Like, you don't really want to have these with food too much. These are more like an after dinner beer or after meal beer or something like that, or just sipping around casually. I mean, with the amount of flavors and the added sweetness and the complexity of it, it's so much to take in at once that you just want to try to enjoy it as you go. And I know I'm hopping back and forth between these, but I want to, you know, compare as much as I can. And hopefully, you know, I should drink a little bit of more of this actually, so I can show the lacing a little bit. But I'm going to take a little close up here. But you can see this guy right here has a little bit more carbonation around the rim of the glass. This one, bourbon barrel one, not so much. And you can also see by the way the carbonation bubbles rise through here, there's a lot more carbonation coming to the top of the beer versus this one. This one's much slower, more sparse. See here, you really got like small groupings of bubbles that aren't really like, oh, it was at first, but here we go. But it starts off real fine, real thin, quickly dissipates. This right here, it doesn't stick together as much, so you can see it's not as creamy, but when you look at it, you can see how much the bubbles actually rise and fall into the beer itself. So bring that up for another comparison here. You can see the difference with that versus, there's a lot less carbonation trying to come back into this. Yeah, so I know I've, you know, reviewed a couple of different bourbon or just barrel-aged beers in general, but it's really nice to take the same exact beer, you know, side by side, one normal, one barrel-aged, and really show the difference, because you're gonna have, because it's the same exact beer, so the base characteristics are exactly the same. This one, you know, just added flavor and everything. And again, what is it with me and not looking up the ABVs on this? So I checked the ABV on this. The regular under the kilt wee heavy is sitting about 7.8%, which Scotch ales like to be in that 8% range, give or take a little bit. So that's right in the neighborhood of where I'd expect it to be. Now, the barrel-aged version because it sits in there, and it will draw. So what happens is you get what's called the devil's cut in bourbon, which is the alcohol that the barrel itself soaks up. So in turn, what happens is, depending on the type of beer you have, it depends on how much of that devil's cut it's going to, absorb into it. And because of that, you're going to have a little bit higher ABV. So I would put this, closer to a 9 or a little bit higher. So this is so barrel-aged beers always are have more alcohol and are more potent. So hopefully you'll learn something in this. I definitely know I did too. First time, really sitting down. This is my first time sitting down and really tasting, regular versus a barrel-aged version myself. So that was, it's a different experience, but it really puts things into perspective. So if you have that chance, go to a local brewery, or you see something out in the store yourself, go to the local, screw it, just go to a local brewery, find a porter, find a barrel-aged porter, whatever, and take a taster and side-by-side comparison. And it is definitely fun to do, and I enjoy doing this. So with that, I bid you adieu. Stay thirsty, bastards. I got some pizza to eat.